What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the one indicator you must know for this altcoin season. We're going to be talking about what it is and why it's so effective. Of course, we're going to talk about the daily charts as well, Bitcoin, the stock market, rest of the crypto. We're going to be also taking a look into some top 100 cryptos for setups that have not moved or that are already on the move but with still pretty big price targets. Now, if you guys are new to this channel, you guys should know that in this channel, I dive deep into the charts every day so we can actually find the moves before they happen. Because let's face it, that's a lot less riskier than chasing a pumping green candle, okay? If you guys ever chased a pumping green candle, we've all been there. Let me know how that went, how stressful it is, right? Just to squeeze every incremental percentage gain out of that position, right? And every point, every percentage that drops, I mean, that's going to stress you out. I've been there. I don't do that anymore, right? I don't chase the huge pumping green candles anymore, okay? So that is basically what I'm doing here on a daily basis. Now, if you guys do have any technical analysis requests, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, of course. Like I said, I do daily ideas here. And leave your requests in the comment section below. I will choose one request to do every day in the next video, so make sure to be paying attention. Now, I will have the altcoin setups towards the end of the video, so make sure you guys are staying around for that. We're going to be looking into top 100 crypto altcoins by market cap and see what could potentially happen before the moves actually happen. Let's go ahead and dive right into the charts. Okay, on the hourly time frame, Bitcoin here, we have actually touched down on some pretty important short-term moving averages. All right, I usually see a bounce coming from the hourly 200 SMA, which is the orange line here, currently at about 94,000 now. Okay, so it's been catching up to the price action. Price action hasn't really dropped that much since it has gone all the way up to about 96,000, right? So it's just letting the short-term moving averages catch up to the price action, and when it catches up to the price action, it basically serves as support, right? I have actually entered in a position based on where the price action is right now, and I have actually taken a small profit earlier today, well, this morning, in the AM hours, okay? So, that's a small position. I still have to make a day-to-day living, right? Trading, and I trade on leverage. That's not recommended, especially if, you haven't had any success or experience trading spot, right? But it could come in pretty handy if you know what you're doing and you're making consistent profitable trades, even if it's small profits, okay? Because it's one of the ways I pay my bills, right? Now, let's go ahead and also take into a look into the 12-hour time frame. I talked about this yesterday, right? We've been having quite a bit of reversal signals on the 12-hour time frame, on the 12-hour RSI, very important but simple indicator, okay? When you see higher highs on the price action chart, like you do here, however, with lower highs on the RSI, that usually means a reversal. We've been getting those small dips, right? And it finally came down to the 12-hour 21 SMA, right? That was support at about 93,000, just short. Daily time frame, okay? We do have a reversal signal here as well, but what's also important here is that we still have a higher low, okay? So if a higher low actually holds, you can expect a higher high. Of course, it can be broken, so it's something to be keeping an eye out on. I just also want to touch back on yesterday's I just want to recap on yesterday. So yesterday there was a symmetrical triangle pattern I pointed out that usually breaks to the upside It looked like it was breaking to the upside for a little bit. However, price action just started dumping, okay, when after the breakout. That could happen as well, okay? So it's just one of the scenarios you got to keep in mind of, right? Even after a breakout, there could still be a dump back into the pattern. Something you got to be keeping an eye out on, right? Because that could very much happen. And if you guys do continue to trade in the long term, you will see what I mean. And it's just something that you gotta strategize around. Let's take a look into Ethereum. Well, actually, let's come back to Bitcoin real quick. I'm not done talking about Bitcoin. Okay, 3-day time frame still very important. 3-day time frame still very important. Just gotta mention this. All right, trading view lagging today. All right, 3-day time frame. We broke out of this double bottom pattern. Still very important. We are still at resistance on the 3-day time frame and the weekly time frame. Okay, moving averages are there. Okay, at about 93,000 until we start getting solid candle closes above those resistance levels and moving averages. They are still resistance. Something to be keeping an eye out on, but we did break out of this double bottom pattern, which I have been pointing out that it's a very important and powerful pattern to be spotting. And if you guys look at the charts enough, you guys would be able to spot these patterns pretty easily. Okay, double bottom pattern, very important. We broke out of that. Price target is about 104,000. Okay, 3-day time frame. So bigger time frame might take longer to play out. Now let's come over here to Ethereum. Ethereum still lagging. It's still, in my opinion, I mean, it is in fact behind Bitcoin and Total 3 because of what the price action is relative to the moving averages, right? Bitcoin is very well above the daily 200 SMA. Okay, that is very important because if you're above the daily 200 SMA, that is basically the divide between calling it a bull market and a bear market. Ethereum still very well below it, which is at about 27,100. Price target out of this breakout though is still 2,900. Okay, this huge falling wedge pattern, very common pattern as well, especially out of a downtrend, and this has been forming since the end of January. Broke out recently. Price target 2,900. Something to be keeping in mind of. Total 3. Total 3, very similar charts. You can see on the daily time frame. Broke out of this falling wedge pattern. Price target is just a little bit under 1.1 trillion. Very close to the daily 200 SMA. It is at least above the daily 50 SMA and the daily 21 SMA, but very close to the daily 200 at about 860 billion. Now, this could do some pretty significant pumps for some of these smaller altcoins, even though, the price target is, I mean, in terms of percentages, it's not that big, but it could do some pretty amazing pumps for some of these smaller altcoins, as you guys have already seen on some of these exchanges like Coinbase, right? Especially in the past couple of days. Now, let's see what else we should be getting into, okay? Stock market, okay? This is highly correlated with Bitcoin, okay? It a lot of times can serve as a front-running signal for Bitcoin. And what I'm looking at here is trading view still lagging. Okay, I'm gonna wait. So it did break out of this falling wedge pattern. Okay, daily time frame, very important. When you break out of a falling wedge pattern, that looks very bullish right now. And price target is going to be about 5,800. Now, price targets are estimates only, and it could be more or less. And of course, as we have seen yesterday, out of that smaller symmetrical triangle pattern on Bitcoin, it did not even go, anywhere near towards its price target. So something to be keeping in mind of, okay? anything could happen in this market, okay? But it's still a very good idea to get an idea of what could happen. But it doesn't mean that risk management is off the table at any time. All right, so let's come over here to, like I said, daily time frame, stock market looking very good. So I don't see any warning signs here right now for S&P 500 that could threaten Bitcoin. And this is the S&P 500 mini futures ES1 exclamation mark. It opens Sunday afternoon here Pacific Standard Time. Let's come over here to some top 100 altcoins, okay? And see if we can actually find any moves before they happen. So we have actually quite a bit of time today. Let's go ahead and dive into some of these charts here, and I'll walk you through my thought process of how I look at these coins, and find moves before they happen. Okay, let's come over here to SEI. Okay, I did some of these coins for the past couple of episodes. You guys can check it out in my library, right? And I'm still waiting for TradingView to load here, so it's been slow. All right, so let's come over here to the monthly time frame. Very important. Now, monthly time frames are very important, especially if you have an RSI reading, because now let me just point you guys back to data. If you look at any altcoins with RSI data on the monthly time frame, okay, and you guys can find that pretty easily on TradingView. If you guys don't have TradingView by now, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's gonna be a very, it's gonna be a very important tool that you guys will need for trading and this upcoming bull cycle, okay, and learning about this market as well. You're not gonna be able to learn about trading without TradingView, okay, at least not effectively, in my opinion. Now, SEI, we do have a monthly RSI reading. Okay, so in this case, it's not in overbought territory. So at least that tells me it's not a high risk position to have right now. Okay, what I mean is, if it's above 70 on the RSI on the monthly time frame, that tells me it's in a high risk territory and it could be dumping pretty soon. Okay, at least according to data from altcoins. Any altcoin with a monthly RSI data, look at it 2020, 2021. Once it gets up to overbought territory in the RSI, it doesn't stay up there for very long. And a dump, and like basically followed. Okay. Not saying that it's gonna even get up there this time or it cannot get past the previous RSI reading, but it's just a good reference point. And if you have data, I mean that's more powerful than just going off your own estimates, okay, or your own emotions. All right, SCI monthly time frame, not in high risk territory. Let's take a look into if I can find any patterns here. I like to have, so basically if you want to draw trend lines, you got to have 3 connecting candle wicks. Okay, that makes it a valid trend line on that time frame. And here we do have, I mean, this is very close. Okay, it doesn't have to be super exact, but this is pretty close. For the third touch here, either here or here, right? That's pretty close. I'm gonna call this a falling wedge pattern. And you're gonna find very similar charts across markets, not just crypto. And this is usually a bullish pattern. Okay, let's just say if it breaks out later, okay, at this point. Okay, you can adjust it however you want. It's just an estimate. price target is going to give you about $1.35 for SEI. Of course, if it breaks out sooner, then put the measurements on top of that breakout point. And the measurement of the price target is going to be the opening of the pattern, and then you put it back on top of a potential breakout point. All right, that's SEI. So price target is going to be about $1.35. What could be happening on a smaller time frame here? Well, it's at the bottom. It's near the bottom of this this falling wedge pattern. Okay, we're still getting higher highs and higher lows on a daily time frame. Okay, I see a lot of altcoins retesting about the daily 200 SMA. Okay, let's come over here to virtual. Let's see if we have a monthly RSI reading. We don't. It's still a pretty new coin, so we're not gonna talk about the RSI reading here since we don't have one. But something to be keeping in mind that that is a reading that I would really like to have, because if it does get into overbought territory on the monthly RSI, that tells me it's in high risk territory. Now, what's going on here is it looks like it does look like it has a higher high at this time. Okay, we gotta wait for a weekly candle close, right? Right, on the 3-day time frame, we have a higher high here, comparing this high right here with this high. So at least that's looking good. Look for a higher low, okay? And that would confirm that this is back on an uptrend, right? And when that higher low gets broken, then you might want to look for a lower high to confirm a downtrend for the next lower low. So what I'm looking at, it's looking like it's trying to build a rounded bottom, which is a pretty common pattern as well. And rounded bottoms are still bullish, right? Because what you're seeing is higher highs and higher lows, and the higher lows are building that rounded bottom, which tells me that buyers are coming in at higher prices, which is bullish. So that's what I'm looking at for virtual here. Not until it actually develops more of a rounded bottom, possibly into a cup and handle pattern, that it's that we'll talk more about it. But right now it looks like it's still too early. Let's take a look into the daily time frame and see if we can find any other patterns here. This is already retesting that daily 200 SMA, right? The orange line here. So you're gonna find a lot of altcoins retesting that as well. Okay. And that's basically where virtual is. I don't see any daily time frame patterns here. Let's take a look into a smaller time frame. I don't see a way to actually put any trend lines through this as well. So let's just leave it at this, right? Still developing a rounded bottom on a higher time frame. Let's see if we have time for one more before the 20-minute mark, because that's when TradingView actually shuts down, and that's how long they can go for in recording. I'm gonna try to do probably a more extended recording if you guys want, but that's gonna be without TradingView, at least as the main recorder. So this is Brett. It is a meme coin. Okay, let's take a look at this. It looks like it's already broken out, right? Falling wedge pattern. Price target. I know that's probably the most exciting parts. Let's see here. Price target is going to give you about just 15 cents, right underneath 15 cents. All right, that basically wraps up today's video. Make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe, and comment. I will see you guys next time. Have a beautiful day.